The world was frozen. Glaciers stretched for miles, swallowing valleys and mountains alike. The wind could rip the heat straight out of your bones, and food was so scarce that every meal was a gamble between survival and starvation. This was life for our ancestors during the last ice age, and yet, somehow they endured. The question is, how? How did cavemen, with no technology, no cities, and no safety nets, manage to survive one of the harshest periods in Earth's history? The answer is more incredible and more brutal than you might think. 20,000 years ago, our planet was in the grip of the last ice age, a time when glaciers covered almost a third of Earth's surface. Mountains vanished under walls of ice. Rivers froze solid for months. Even the air was different. Sharper, drier, colder than anything we can imagine today. For early humans, this wasn't an abstract climate event. It was daily life. You woke up to a world of white and gray, where the horizon was nothing but snowdrifts and the occasional jagged peak. The sun was pale, offering no real warmth. The temperature could drop low enough to freeze exposed skin in minutes, but cold wasn't the only enemy. The Ice Age reshaped the land, carving out vast plains and pushing forests back into smaller, scattered patches. That meant less shelter, fewer plants to gather, and longer, more dangerous journeys between safe spots. This wasn't just a test of endurance, it was a test of adaptation. Every day, our ancestors had to solve the same question. How do we survive one more night? A wrong step, a failed hunt, or a sudden storm could erase an entire family line in this frozen arena. Only the most resourceful would live to see the seasons change. The Ice Age wasn't just cold, it was crowded with predators. Imagine stepping out of your shelter and knowing you weren't the only hunter on the plains. Massive cave lions, packs of dire wolves, and the saber-toothed cats were all competitors for the same scarce prey. And then there were the short-faced bears, towering creatures that could outrun a horse and overpower almost anything in their path. For early humans, these weren't distant threats. They followed migration routes just as we did, waiting for opportunities to strike. A careless child, a lone hunter, even a group weakened by hunger could be taken, and hunger was constant. Winters could stretch endlessly, and even in summer, game was hard to find. Hunting a mammoth or bison meant incredible risk, but the reward was life-saving, enough meat to feed a group for weeks. If they could keep it from scavengers, disease also lurked in the shadows. Without medicine, even a minor infection could become fatal. Injuries from hunts, frostbite from the cold, or sickness from spoiled food could wipe out entire families. Every day meant walking a knife's edge, one wrong decision, one miscalculation, and the Ice Age would claim you. But still, humans found ways to keep moving forward. And the most important part of survival came from understanding the land itself. For Ice Age humans, there was no comfort zone. Even inside shelters, life was precarious. Fires had to be kept alive constantly. A flame going out in the dead of winter could mean death before morning. Clothing wasn't fashion. It was survival technology made from layered animal hides, stitched with bone needles, and insulated with fur. Food storage was another challenge. Without salt or advanced preservation, meat was often smoked over fires or frozen in ice pits, but both methods came with risks. The scent could draw predators for miles, and nothing in the Ice Age went unnoticed. Social bonds were critical. Small groups, often extended families or clans, depended on each member to play a role. Hunters, gatherers, tool makers, fire tenders, and guards all worked in rhythm. Survival wasn't a solo endeavor. One person failing their role could put everyone at risk. And yet, despite the constant threats, humans adapted in remarkable ways. They read the land, predicted animal movements, and found patterns in the chaos of the seasons. They learned that survival wasn't just about strength, it was about knowledge, cooperation, and the ability to change when the world refused to. The Ice Age had set the rules of the game. Now it was time for humans to figure out how to win. In the Ice Age, fire wasn't just warmth, it was the heartbeat of life. Without it, nights were deadly, predators fearless, and food inedible. Cavemen mastered the art of keeping a flame alive for days, sometimes weeks, carrying embers from one camp to the next in hollowed bone or wrapped in dry moss. Starting a new fire from scratch was risky in freezing winds, so keeping it burning was a constant priority. Shelter was the second line of defense. Not all Ice Age homes were caves. In fact, many were built from the bones of mammoths, draped with hides and packed with snow for insulation. In forested regions, humans built low, rounded huts from timber, covering them in grass and earth to trap heat. These structures weren't meant for comfort. They were designed to survive blizzards that could last for days. A well-built shelter could mean the difference between waiting out a storm and freezing to death in the open. Fire and shelter together created a fragile bubble of safety in an otherwise hostile world. But to keep that bubble intact, humans had to face their next challenge, finding enough to eat in a land where hunger was the constant shadow. In a world where plants were scarce for much of the year, protein was the currency of survival. Hunting required skill, teamwork, and immense patience. Large prey like mammoths, bison, or reindeer meant the survival of the group. But taking one down wasn't just about bravery, it was about strategy. Hunters used natural traps, narrow valleys, or ice-covered rivers to slow animals, striking with spears and stone-tipped javelins. Smaller animals like hares and birds were caught with snares, nets, or by tracking them to their burrows. Every scrap of meat was used, not just for food, but for clothing, tools, and glue made from boiled bones. Preservation was vital. In deep winter, meat could be stored in snow pits or frozen streams, safe from decay, but not always from scavengers. In milder seasons, smoking and drying became essential to prevent spoilage. These techniques weren't just conveniences. They meant a group could survive weeks without a successful hunt, but even the best hunters couldn't survive alone. The Ice Age demanded something far more powerful than individual skill. It demanded unity. If there was one secret weapon humans had over every Ice Age predator, it was our ability to work together. Wolves hunted in packs, yes, but humans planned in packs. Groups coordinated hunts, sharing roles between trackers, drivers, and spear throwers. Others stayed behind to protect children, maintain the fire, or prepare shelters for returning hunters. Knowledge was a form of survival currency. Skills like flint knapping, sewing with bone needles, or identifying safe plants were passed down through storytelling and demonstration. A child growing up in the Ice Age wasn't just learning to walk and talk. They were learning to read the tracks of a reindeer, to feel the change in wind that meant a storm was coming, to know the difference between berries that fed you and berries that killed you. Sharing resources was just as important. A single hunter's kill might feed another family, knowing that one day the favor would be returned. This web of trust meant that entire groups could survive bad hunts, injuries, or sudden disasters. Through fire, shelter, food, and cooperation, humans built a survival system strong enough to withstand the cold. But the Ice Age was far from over, and the next test was learning to outlast it entirely. The Ice Age wasn't one endless wall of frost. It was a world in constant flux. Seasons shifted between bitter cold and brief thaws, and over thousands of years, glaciers advanced and retreated like slow-moving beasts. For early humans, survival meant more than enduring the cold. It meant adapting to change. Groups became semi-nomadic, moving between seasonal camps to follow migrating herds or find new shelter when rivers froze over. They learned to read the land, the way a certain slope caught the sun, or how a grove of evergreens could block the wind. Every movement was calculated to balance safety, food, and warmth, but adaptation also meant invention. The cold drove innovation in clothing, tools, and hunting techniques. Parka-like garments made from layered furs appeared. Footwear was lined with grass for insulation. Spears evolved into longer, lighter weapons, and eventually, the outlaw, a throwing stick. That gave hunters deadly range over prey. Change was the constant. And humans who failed to adapt didn't just fall behind, they vanished. Surviving the Ice Age wasn't only about battling the elements. There were other threats, silent, invisible, and just as deadly. Injury could be a death sentence. A broken leg meant you couldn't hunt, move with the group, or defend yourself. Illness, even something as simple as an infected cut, could spread rapidly. Without modern medicine, humans relied on herbal remedies, rest, and the care of others. This made social bonds not just emotional connections, but literal lifelines. Then there were predators. Wolves, cave lions, and even giant hyenas saw humans as competition, and sometimes as prey. People didn't just defend their camps, they designed them with safety in mind. Fires at night kept predators wary. Camps were often placed near cliffs or water sources to limit attack angles. Even rival human groups could be a danger. The Ice Age was a time of scarcity, and resources weren't always shared peacefully. Encounters between strangers could be tense or violent. To survive, humans had to defend against the cold, hunger, disease, predators, and each other, all at once. After thousands of years, the world began to change again, this time for good. Slowly, the ice retreated. Glaciers melted, rivers swelled, and grasslands spread where tundra once ruled. Herds shifted their migration routes, and forests returned to places long buried under snow. This change brought opportunity and risk. Old hunting grounds disappeared. New animals appeared, along with fresh plants and resources. For humans, it was a test of adaptability on a scale they had never faced. Some groups followed the retreating ice north, clinging to the environment they knew best. Others pushed into new lands, experimenting with different food sources, and learning to live in warmer climates. These were the seeds of human expansion, leading us to settle in nearly every corner of the planet. The Ice Age had shaped humanity into a species of survivors, adaptable, cooperative, and endlessly resourceful. The skills we learned in that frozen world are still in us, echoing in how we build, plan, and endure today. The ice may have melted, but the legacy of those who survived it never will. Imagine standing in the frozen silence of an Ice Age night. The wind cuts like knives, the darkness beyond the fire feels alive, and somewhere in the distance, something moves. For our ancestors, this wasn't a scene from a movie, it was reality every single day. They didn't just survive by being strong. They survived because they learned, they adapted. They relied on each other when everything around them wanted them gone. The Ice Age didn't just shape the land. It shaped us. Every skill we take for granted today, building shelter, planning ahead, protecting our communities, has roots buried deep in that frozen past. We are the descendants of those who refuse to give up, no matter how impossible the odds seem. So next time you step outside on a cold winter morning, remember, you carry the blood of Ice Age survivors. The fire that kept them alive is still burning in you. If you want to keep exploring the hidden chapters of our prehistoric story, the species we've forgotten, the predators we've outsmarted, and the dangers that still follow us, make sure to subscribe and join me for the next journey into the ancient world. Because the Ice Age may be over, but its echoes are still here.